Hi guys, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make an RGB LED rotating display stand. Now, as you can tell right now, it's rotating the Millennium Falcon. Now, I've not designed the Millennium Falcon. I found it on Thingiverse. I'll leave a link to it down below. But everything below it is designed by me. It's a little cheap DIY, awesome rotating light stand which runs off of 5V any USB, which is just super insane. So this whole piece is completely universal. The bottom piece is absolutely universal. You print out another attachment that holds the Millennium Falcon. It's just a standard, circle. You just hot glue whatever you want on top of it. Mario, whatever you like, or whatever you have designed. You can go ahead and do that, and it'll just be insane. Now, as you can tell here, I'm using transparent filament, which was provided me by 3D Jake. Now, this company it has very good prices, and it's probably one of the cheapest here in Europe that I've found. This filament was sponsored by them. It's their ecoPLA transparent filament for a very good price, and I got the 1 kilogram, and it's just beautiful. Look at it. I've just been looking at it all day. This is the whole motivation from this project is because of that filament, and it's just it's gorgeous. It's forgiving. It binds. It's just awesome. So, enough talking, and let's get started. Alright guys, so some of the components we're going to be using here are going to be linked down below, and they are a Arduino Nano, some wires, the smaller the better, an 8 neopixel RGB LED. This has 8 neopixels, it's the perfect size here, and we need some nylon standoffs, and a 5V stepper motor. Now this came with a kit. I'll leave it a link down below. It's a pretty awesome cheap kit. It's Arduino Kit. It comes with a lot of things from resistors, LEDs, and all that kind of crazy stuff. However, these two did not come with the kit, so you're going to have to get that yourself. Now for filament, we're going to be using a clear filament from a company called 3D Jack. They were kind enough to sponsor this video with the filaments, and they do have a great price, and they do fast shipping, especially for Europe, because it's very difficult for me to find things here in Europe, and I really highly recommend you check them out. I'll leave a link to them down below. So we're going to be using their clear filament, and I found it to be just absolutely awesome. Alright guys, so the idea here is we print our Falcon. So like I mentioned, this is the clear filament from 3D Jack. And what we're going to do is the box is supposed to in-house all of our electronics here, and as well as have a little kind of notch here to hold the RGB LED in place. And we're going to have a little adapter that connects here, and it's going to hold this, and it'll just rotate it, and as well as just start changing colors. So that's the idea. I'll leave a link to this. I did not design this. I'll leave a link to this on Thingiverse down below. I printed at 0.3 by mistake, but it just took so long, and I didn't want to redo it in 0.2, but it just still came out pretty good. However, as you can tell here, I kind of broke it when I was removing some of the support material, because it printed like this. So as you can tell, that line right here is from the support material right there, but it's totally fine. I mean, it just came out awesome. So yeah, so that's the whole idea. So let's get designing, and let's get started. Alright guys, so here are the components we need right here, and as you can tell right here, the infill type will dictate how your top plate is going to be. However, I did a honeycomb top plate which looked super awesome, especially with the LEDs. However, with this one, I really thought, oh no, I think straight lines would look better, but I had the size here completely kind of wrong. I had the wrong offset, so this wouldn't fit. So when I made the second one, I made it with straight line infills. Now I highly recommend you do the honeycomb because that just looks awesome. I'll probably redo this later. But now let's just take a look of how this is supposed to fit. So we have our adapter here. And in theory, what we're supposed to do is we're going to put super glue on this guy right here and super glue on the bottom and just glue it like so. And this piece right here is supposed to go on top of the servo. However, the tolerance is smaller than the servo. So what you're gonna have to do is use like a little heat gun, just a little bit, just heat this up a tiny bit and just stick it on and it'll just fall into place. It doesn't have to stay firmly, but because I set up the notches in the design, it'll hold and it'll turn, you know, perfect. So you don't have to worry about anything. It's perfect, as you can tell right there. So it doesn't matter if this falls off because it's not going to be hanging upside down. So that's good in that perspective. So this is supposed to be like this. And in theory, everything is supposed to go in. And the standoffs are going to be used to hold the stepper motor into place. It should align. You should be able to move it around. And once it's into place, what you want to do is we're going to have to set this up. And the LED obviously will be right here. And we've set this up and the Falcon will be on top. And I set up a little gap right there for the LED wires. So we don't want to solder we could solder the LED wires to the LED, but we don't want to solder them just yet to the Arduino because we need to route them through that hole right there. So let's get started with setting up the LED here. So what we want to do is, as you can tell right here, if you don't know, you're going to have 4 pins or 3 pins. You're going to have a 5-volt ground, DI, and DO. DI is data in. That's what we need. It's where the Arduino tells the LED what to do here. So let's go ahead and solder up 3 wires to the data in, 5-volt, and ground. Alright, so what I want to do here first is I just want to prepare the paths. Just re-hit them with some solder and just make sure they're nice and clean. Nice and fresh solder right here. So just quickly touch those into place. And I had a wire in there, so that was why it was pushing. Alright, okay. So let's go ahead and grab our wires. Now I just got red, black, and yellow. So I'm going to use yellow as data, which is the data in right there. So let's go ahead and set this up here. There we go. And then we're going to use, what's next? 5 volt. So let's just use red for 5 volt here. So here's red. Alright, so now let's go ahead and grab the stepper motor controller unit. Now this will be connected to the Arduino, which will be connected to the stepper motor, which will control it. So as you can see here, there's pinouts. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. All we need is the first 4 here. And we have a 5 volt and ground right there. So it's a positive and a minus. Forget that sign right there. Just look at the plus and the minus. So what I want to do is I want to bend these down just to make my life a little bit easier here. And we could just solder the wires straight to them because I don't think they will fit the connectors here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to easily bend this down here. Just nice and easy. You don't want to break anything. There we go. Here's one bent. So if you grab it from the top, it's a little bit easier, as you can tell right there. So I'm just bending them down. And then I could worry about them later, how well they're bent down. Okay, now just straighten them up a little bit. So now we have all of them bent down. So let's go ahead and just start preparing them. We're just going to add a little bit of solder to each of those pins right here, and we'll take it from there. So just a little bit. Be careful not to bridge them. The wire will also have some solder on it, so it'll help it stick also, or hold. Okay. Alright, so we added solder there. Now let's go ahead and just start preparing the wires. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is I want to start with the power here. We have the one on the right is positive, it's very difficult to see now, positive, and then we have negative. So I'm going to take a red wire for positive here, and this will be going to the 5 volt on the Arduino Nano. So let's go ahead and just, just hold it on top of each other. Just give it a nice little hold right there, and just keep it into place until it dries. And look at that, we got a beautiful connection right there. Now we could have desoldered the pins and just soldered it into place, but that's just more time consuming. and this will hold just as fine because there's not going to be a lot of tension and anything on it. So as you can see, that's very good right there. So there we go. We got our positives here. Now let's take a look here. So we're going to go ahead and set up 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now make sure you take note of the correct order and of your color coding of your wires. Now if you have them all the same wire, just double check these. So I'm just going to go ahead and put them on and just keep it into place a little bit before moving it. So let it cool down and it'll hold, and then you should be good. There we go. Now I have another yellow one, so I'm gonna make it on the last one, as you can tell right there. So let's go ahead and set that up there. Just make sure you hold it there for a while. Try not to move it until you feel the heat go to your fingers. Once you do that, I mean, if you're not holding it, then you know it's starting to cool down because the heat's starting to dissipate throughout the wire. So once I feel the heat on my finger, then it's usually good. All right, so we're almost done here. Now I'm gonna trim this wire. It's a little bit too long here. There we go. It's perfect now. And I'm just holding the wire on top of the pin, and then just touching it, just holding it, both of them with the touching both of them with the soldering iron. And then they should, because they're so small, they take heat so quick. So there we go. Now we're all set. We have our 4 wires here that'll control the servo, and we have the power here that'll control the stepper motor. Perfect. So let's go ahead and bring the Arduino now, because now it's the Arduino's turn, and we're going to be soldering these wires. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare them. I'm just going to strip them, add a little solder on each of the wire here, and then I'll show you how to connect these up. Alright guys, so I've gone ahead and prepared the wires. I just stripped them and then just added solder to them. Obviously twisted them and then added solder. So now what we need to look for is the pins D8 through 11, and they're down here, D8, 9, 10, 11. And what you want to do is you want to install them the same order, I mean, from lowest to highest. So 1 here would go to 8, 2 here would go to 9, all the way to 11 because there's 4 wires. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So first thing I want to do is I want to actually retouch these pads a little bit, because it just needs a little bit of work, because this is a very old Arduino that I found laying around. So let's just go ahead and do that. All right, perfect. So now what I want to do, since I didn't remove the pin headers because I was lazy, so what I did, I just cut them off here and I just left them there. I could always remove them later by just removing this black thing, this black plastic, and then I could just pull them out and heat them up, pull them out one by one if I had to. So what we want to do is we want to find number 8 and solder the 1 from here. So 1 is right there, it's in 1. So this is going to go on 8. So let's just go ahead and prepare that now. It's going to be very difficult doing it on camera. Okay. It's going to be right there. And always clean the tip of the solder. Okay. Alright, so I got them installed. It was very difficult to do it on camera, but like I said, you have in 1 through 4, so it says in 1, 2, 3, 4, and here pins 8 through 11. So 1 would go to 8, 2 would go to 9, 3 would go to 10, and 4 would go to 11, and you're good. So now what we need is the ground, and we need the 5 volt here. So let's go ahead and find a ground pad on the Arduino, and we should have 2. Here's a ground right here, and now we also need a 5 volt on the 5 volts up here. So let's go ahead and install these there. Alright, great. So that's all installed. So let's go ahead and grab our box now. Now you see there's a hole right there. However, mine didn't come out so good because I could not rip off the support that was made by the software. So we're just going to place that right there and just take a quick look and seeing how we're going to set this whole thing up here. So what I want is I want to try to avoid the wires from going anywhere near the servo here. So I think like this is going to be good. This all the way back to the corner. And now you can see here we still have the hole right there in place for the USB to go through. All right, so next step is the LED now. Now the LED, we've already installed the wires here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just route them through the hole here. This is going to go in like so. So what we're going to do now is let's go ahead and use hot glue to hold this in place, and then we could figure out what we're going to do with the wires next. All right, so the glue gun's ready. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of hot glue and just to stick it into place. So let's just add just a little dab here, a little dab there, and a little dab here. And that should be good. So there we go. It's holding. Very nice. And just clean out the inner part. So that's not going anywhere anytime soon. That should be held firmly and very nicely into place there. All right, so now what do we need to do is we're going to need to install the wires to the Arduino. Now for the Arduino, what we're going to need, the data pin, which we made yellow and we made node, make sure you make note of the wires before you go ahead and glue it in, unless you could see it through there. So we need to make sure it's long enough, but not too long to where it gets very messy inside. So I think it's going to be around here is going to be good. It's almost the length of the box there. So I'll just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare these wires. All right, so now we have all three wires ready. Now we need to find the ground, 5 volt, and the D3 pin. So let's take a look at the Arduino here. And D3 is right there. And 5 volt, we're going to have to connect it with the 5 volt here. Or we could just connect it with the pin right there. It'll also work just fine. And we need another ground. There's 2 grounds on the Arduino. And the other ground is right there. So let's just go ahead. I'm just going to retouch these pads here with a little bit of solder so we can get a nice connection going. All right, so what we're going to do is first we're going to try to connect the 5 volt with the 5 volt here. Now it'll be a challenge because one wire will tend to come off as we already have the wire for the servo going right there. So let's just go ahead and try to do that anyways. So we're going to try to go from top like so, hold that with our finger. And hopefully we got a good connection. Yes, we did. So that's awesome. We got the 5 volt for the LED going. Now we need pad D3, which is right there. So we need to set up the yellow wire, which is the data in wire. And now ground, last but not least, we had an extra ground pad. So let's go ahead and trim some of this wire because it's a bit too long, as you can tell right there. So we're just going to trim some of that off. And the ground is right there. So let's go ahead and set that up. Make sure nothing is touching. All right, so now everything is connected. Let's go ahead and start super gluing everything into place. So first thing what I want to do is I want to hot glue this right down here in the corner. So let's just go ahead and get started with that. So I'm just going to add a little hot glue here. Not a lot, just a little, because I don't want it to also warp the 3D printed part here. So there we go. That's in place. Beautiful. Now we're going to go ahead and do this to the Arduino. So let's figure out how to do this best place. Now make sure you align the hole for the USB so you can give it power, because this whole thing is going to be powered by USB. So make sure the hole is aligned. Now the hole here is very ugly because the support material would not come off because of how I set it up, and which was my mistake. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add hot glue along the edge here just to touch a couple of them. There we go. And that should be aligned and in place nice and firmly. There we go. So yeah. Okay. So that's good. And now what do we need to do? Now we need to get the stepper motor into place. And what we're going to do is we're going to have the wires go with the LED wires. You can tell right there. It should align perfect. And the clearance should be spot on, as you can tell right there. All right, so what we want to do next is we want to grab the nylon standoffs here. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the first screw. I'm just going to put it into place here. All right, so once you set up the screws, now mine are portraying out. Yours will be sitting flush here once I fix the Thingiverse file. Like I mentioned before, the first one was the offset was on the inside and I had to take to the outside, but I didn't notice these, but that's totally fine. So as you can see here, it fits pretty snug, but you could also add super glue if you wanted to, just a tiny bit, and it'll hold in place, but it just holds nice and good. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and connect the servo wire to that servo controller that was hanging loose, and now we just go ahead and put this on. Now, if this will not fit on right away, so what you have to do is just use a heat gun and just apply a little bit of heat, hold it for a little bit, and then just easy, make sure you put it in the correct orientation. You'll see it on the file, and then that's into place here. Now, the last step is to put some hot glue on the Falcon. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we're just gonna add a little hot glue here. I think that's good enough. And we're gonna just clean it up a little. Make sure the broken side is on the bottom. Let it dry, and there we go. So now all you got to do is just flash your software, and I'll have a link to the software down below the code. It's basically a mix of a stepper motor code and a mix of the strand test, but a little bit modified because you can't run two things at once. But I kind of figured out a way to allow it and make it seem like it's doing the RGB as well as spinning at the same time. So let's go ahead and do the first test. Alright guys, so this project was a complete success. I mean, it just looks absolutely phenomenal in real life. The camera, hopefully the camera is doing it some justice, but you have to see this in person. I'm just constantly looking at it. It's just awesome. And that's going to conclude it for this video, guys. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Please consider joining my Patreon. Help me support this channel. Bring in more DIY projects and more ESC testing and all kinds of crazy good stuff. And don't miss out on the giveaways. I have a couple custom 3-inch quadcopters that I'm building right now, and they will be going to my Patreons. So please consider joining Patreon. You can also use the links down below. Those greatly support the channel. And I will see you next time. See you guys. Take care.